Rain dripped steadily from the cracked roof of her small apartment as Maya held her phone, trembling fingers hovering over the send button. Her baby Lily whimpered weakly in the corner, too hungry to cry loudly anymore. Maya had spent her last few coins on electricity 2 days ago. She typed a desperate message meant for a kind neighbor who had once helped her. "Please, can you lend me some money for baby formula? I'll pay you back when I get my paycheck." But in her exhaustion, she mistyped one digit of the phone number. The message was sent, not to her neighbor, but to Alexander Reed, CEO of one of the country's largest corporations. She didn't know it yet, but that accidental text would change her life forever. Alexander sat in his penthouse office, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling glass and silence. It had been a long day of meetings, mergers, and men who only spoke to him in numbers. He was reviewing quarterly reports when his phone buzzed with an unknown number. Normally he'd delete it, but something about the message made him pause. The words weren't written like a scam. They carried real fear, exhaustion, and sincerity. "Please, can you lend me some money for baby formula?" He frowned. CEOs didn't respond to random texts, yet something tugged at him. Against every instinct of logic and habit, he replied, "Who is this?" Maya froze when her phone lit up. Someone had replied. Her heart skipped. It wasn't her neighbor's name. Panic spread through her. "Oh no," she whispered, realizing her mistake. "I must have texted the wrong person." She quickly wrote back, "I'm so sorry, wrong number. Please ignore that." But before she could put the phone down, another message appeared. "Do you really need baby formula?" She stared at the glowing screen, unsure whether to respond. Shame burned in her chest, but hunger was stronger. She typed, "Yes, I'm just short this week." I shouldn't have asked a stranger. "I'm sorry." Alexander leaned back in his chair, the city's neon skyline reflected in his eyes. He had grown up poor once. People didn't know that. His mother had skipped meals so he could eat. He remembered the taste of hunger, the silence of pride. He typed again, "Where do you live?" The girl hesitated, refusing to share. Smart, he thought. "I can send help another way," he wrote, asking for a nearby store name. When she mentioned a corner grocery, he contacted his assistant, ordering baby supplies, groceries, and warm clothes to be delivered, anonymously. Then, almost without thinking, he sent her a transfer for a small amount. "For Lily," he added in the note. When Maya received the notification, she stared in disbelief. Her eyes filled with tears. The groceries arrived an hour later, and for the first time in days, she held her baby close as Lily drank warm formula. She whispered to the child, "See, someone up there heard us." She wanted to thank the stranger, but when she tried, the only reply was, "No need. Just take care of your little one." Maya assumed she'd never hear from him again, just a kind stranger passing through her dark night. But Alexander couldn't get the message out of his head. Her words, her humility, it was rare. He found himself checking his phone at odd hours, wondering if she was all right. A week later, he texted again. "Did Lily get better?" Maya smiled despite herself, surprised that the stranger still remembered. They started exchanging short messages, nothing romantic, just small glimpses of life. She'd talk about her work at a diner, her hopes to study nursing someday. He never mentioned who he was, calling himself simply Alex. To her, he was just a kind man who cared. Months passed. Maya found a part-time night job, slowly saving money. She never asked for more, though she often wanted to thank Alex properly. One day, she received an invitation to an event, a charity gala for underprivileged families. The invitation was delivered to her apartment with a handwritten note. "You should be there. Bring Lily." Confused, she hesitated, but something told her to go. She borrowed a simple dress from her neighbor, tied her hair neatly, and arrived at the glowing venue with her baby in her arms. The room shimmered with luxury, chandeliers, music, laughter. Maya felt completely out of place, but when she stepped inside, every head turned. At the front of the room stood Alexander Reed, the CEO she had unknowingly texted months ago. When he saw her, his composed expression softened. He walked over slowly, the crowd parting around him. "You came," he said quietly. Her eyes widened. "You're Alex?" He nodded with a smile that reached his eyes. "I told you to take care of Lily. I just didn't say how much she inspired me to take care of others, too." Maya was speechless. Alexander continued, addressing the audience. "This woman reminded me that sometimes The smallest cry for help is the loudest truth of our world. He announced a new foundation in her daughter's name, the Lily Hope Foundation, dedicated to supporting single mothers. The crowd applauded, cameras flashed, but all Maya could do was clutch her baby tighter. When it ended, Alexander handed her a card. "This isn't charity," he said gently. "It's a chance. Come work for me. Let's make sure no mother has to beg for baby formula ever again." Years later, Maya stood at the same stage, now confident, radiant, holding Lily's hand. She had become the head of the very foundation born from her pain. Alexander stood proudly beside her, no longer just a CEO, but a friend, a mentor, maybe something even deeper. She spoke into the microphone, voice steady and full of gratitude. "Sometimes miracles come from mistakes. I texted the wrong number, but God made sure it reached the right heart." The crowd rose to their feet. And somewhere in that applause, Maya realized she was never poor again, not in love, not in hope, not in faith. The morning after the gala felt like the world had been washed clean, brighter, softer, and full of promise. When I woke up, the first thing I saw was Lily sleeping peacefully in her little crib, her tiny cheeks full and rosy. I smiled and glanced at my phone. There was a message from Alex. "Good morning to you and my favorite princess." My heart skipped a beat. I put on a simple dress and told myself not to overthink anything, just move forward with gratitude. When I arrived at the foundation office, Alex was already waiting by the door, holding a cup of coffee and Lily's favorite storybook. "The morning couldn't start without you," he said softly. There was no arrogance in his voice anymore, only warmth and sincerity. We walked in together, and the team greeted us with knowing smiles. In that moment, I realized that what started as an act of kindness had turned into a partnership built on faith and respect. The foundation's work grew fast. We visited neighborhoods where hope was scarce, met mothers who'd been abandoned and taught them to dream again. Lily often came along. Her laughter seemed to bring light wherever she went. People knew her name now. They said her story gave them strength. And whenever old shame tried to whisper, "You were just a poor mother," I'd squeeze Alex's hand and remind myself, we are more than our past. One evening we held a dinner to celebrate the foundation's first anniversary. Everyone who had been part of the journey came, donors, volunteers, and the women we'd helped. The hall glowed with music, laughter, and tears of gratitude. Alex stood up to speak, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "This isn't just my project. It's her courage, her heart, her faith that made it real." Then he looked at me and said, "None of this would exist without her." The room fell silent, and I could feel tears welling in my eyes, not because of pride, but because we had built something beautiful together. After the dinner, when the hall was empty and the night air felt calm and cool, we stepped out onto the balcony. Lily was asleep in the car. Alex wrapped his arms around me as we watched the city lights shimmer. He spoke about the future, expanding the foundation, starting programs for young mothers who'd lost everything. I listened quietly, my heart full. I was no longer the scared woman who sent a message by mistake. I was someone who could stand tall, love deeply, and give back even more. And as the wind brushed against my face, I knew that one wrong text had turned into the greatest blessing of my life. Months later, the city news covered a feature titled "The Text That Changed 3 Lives." It told our story. A single mother who accidentally texted a billionaire CEO, and how that mistake turned into a movement of compassion. People all over the country sent letters, donations, and stories of their own. The foundation grew beyond what we'd ever imagined. Schools began inviting me to speak to young women, and every time I stood before them, I would look out at their hopeful faces and say, "You are not invisible." One act of courage can rewrite your story. Watching their eyes light up reminded me that purpose can rise even from pain. As the years passed, Ethan and I built something even greater than the foundation. We built a family. Lily grew into a bright, compassionate young girl who never forgot where she came from. She often helped serve meals at the shelters her stepfather funded, handing out food with a shy but radiant smile that melted hearts. Ethan would watch her from afar with pride, whispering to me, "She reminds me of you, strong and kind." I would laugh softly, my eyes misting, because in that moment, I realized life had come full circle. The text I once thought was a mistake had turned into a miracle, proving that even in a world of wealth and power, Love and kindness remained the greatest riches of all. One rainy evening, as we sat by the fire, Ethan showed me an old framed screenshot, the very first message I'd sent him by mistake years ago. "This," he said, his VO